What do you look for when buying a good vlogging lens? What matters to you the most to get the results that you need? Strap in. We're going to get right to it. Yo, what's up everybody? It is your boy Brandon, and today we are breaking down some of the top vlogging lenses that's on the market to purchase today. I am going to reveal my favorite vlogging lens, and I hope after this video you will have a better understanding of vlogging and the lenses and what to look for. Vlogging is a short way of saying video log. This is the way we document our everyday lives or whatever we're doing, but we do it through video. It is a way for people to record their thoughts and experiences regularly or talk about a subject. Now, vlogging has become an essential tool for content creators because it is a way to connect more personally and deeper with your audience. It takes you out of the pretty day-to-day settings like studios and whatnot, and it shows the audience what it's really like behind the scenes. Now, a lot of times people just want to vlog just to appear normal, just to appear natural like a regular person. Buying the lens that fits your needs are crucial to proper interaction between you and your audience. When vlogging, you want a lens that's going to help you tell the story, provide good conversation. If you have a lens that is too wide, then it can be busy and distracting. If you have a lens that's too tight, it can kind of take away from the story and you will just be the main focus without being able to tell your story. Now, as consumers, when you're vlogging, there's a few things that you want to take into consideration. The focal length, the aperture, the price, the weight, if it's a prime lens or a zoom lens, and probably if it's APS-C or full frame. Now, I do have a sheet in front of me, and we are going to break down some of the top vlogging lenses that's on the market today through categories. Okay, let's get it. All right, so let's break these down lens by lens, and we're going to throw these on our little spreadsheet here. Okay, first up we have the 11mm 1.8 by Sony. Focal length is 11 millimeters. Aperture is 1.8. The price currently is $498. The weight of it is 0.70 pounds. It is a prime lens and it is for APS-C cameras. Now, this is, again, the focal length is a 11mm. The full frame equivalent of the 11mm on a Sony camera, because Sony camera's crop factor is 1.5, so you have to take the 11mm multiplied by 1.5. That's going to give you around a 16.5 focal length. What is one thing that is extremely important when you multiply the APS-C lenses by the crop factor, you also have to take into consideration the f-stop or the aperture, because you also have to multiply that by the crop factor in order to get the full frame equivalent. So if you multiply a 1.8 lens by the full frame equivalent or a 1.5 crop factor APS-C, you will come out with a 2.7 f-stop. So make sure you can take that in consideration, and we're going to go through those as we go on with this. Okay, next lens up we have the 13mm 1.4 by Viltrox, an amazing lens, and now this lens gets so much praise. All right, so again, this is by Viltrox. We have a 13mm focal length. The aperture is a 1.4. The price currently for the Viltrox 13mm 1.4 is $429. It weighs about 0.93 pounds. It is a prime lens and it is for APS-C. It is definitely a little bit heavier than your 11mm because it definitely has a more metal constructed body, but it's still, again, still lightweight, still under 1 pound, and it is absolutely incredible. You do get a little more light in this one because it is a 1.4 aperture versus the 1.8 on the 11mm. And if you multiply the 13mm 1.4, the full frame equivalent will give you about a 19.5 focal length, and the f-stop will give you about a 2.1 f-stop. Again, these are the full frame equivalent. Moving on to another amazing lens for vlogging on the market today. This is the Sony 10 to 20 millimeter f4. 10 to 20 millimeter f4. This is, and going down our little sheet here, we have 10 to 20 millimeter. The aperture is f4. The price currently for the 10 to 20 miller is about $648 on the market right now. The weight of it currently is about 0.39 pounds. It is a zoom lens and it is for APS-C. Now this probably is the lightest vlogging lens on the market. It is 0.39 pounds, so it is very lightweight. It is a power zoom also, so it does have a switch on the side of it in order to zoom in and zoom out to get that really smooth zoom in and zoom out that you might need. So again, this is a APS-C zoom lens. So the full frame equivalent of a 10 to 20 millimeter f4 would be 15 to 30 millimeter f6. That would be a full frame equivalent for a 10 to 20 millimeter f4. All right, the next lens coming up, we have the Tamron 11 to 20 millimeter 2.8. Now, again, going down our list here, focal length 11 to 20 millimeters, aperture 2.8. The price currently for the Tamron is $649 on the market today. Weight of this lens is about a 0.74 pounds. This is a zoom lens and this is for APS-C cameras. So the full frame equivalent of the 11 millimeter to 20 millimeter 2.8 is going to give you a 16.5 to 30 millimeter f4.2. All right, now let's visit another lens on the market that's been getting a lot of rave. We're talking about the 15 millimeter 1.4. Let's go ahead and throw that on our chart here. So we got 15 millimeters for our focal length. Aperture is 1.4. The price currently for the Sony G 15 millimeter 1.4 is $648 on the market right now, and it weighs about 0.82 pounds. It is a prime lens and it also is for APS-C cameras. So the full frame equivalent of a 15 millimeter 1.4 would be around a 22.5 on the focal length, f2.1 on the f-stop. So now moving on to another lens. Now this lens is no stranger to the market. It's been on the market for a long time and it has received a lot of praise. I used to use it all the time for my videos and it's just an absolute amazing lens, and I think a lot of people would agree with me. And we're talking about the 16 millimeter 1.4 by Sigma Art. Let's go ahead and throw that on our chart also. So we have a 16 millimeter on the focal length. This is by Sigma. The aperture is 1.4. The price currently that you can get this on the market today for about $359. The weight of it is about 0.89 pounds. It is a prime lens for APS-C cameras. The full frame equivalent for a 16 millimeter 1.4 would be about 24 millimeters at f2.1. So again, I say all that to say that when you look at these full frame equivalents, you got to think about how close you want to be to your lens, how far away you want, how much you want to incorporate in your shots, because these things play a really big factor when choosing the right vlogging lens for your setup. And there's some other things, but I think right now, as the market is today, these are the best vlogging lenses that you can get for your APS-C camera or even for your full frame cameras. I don't own APS-C cameras, but I do use one of these lenses, actually two of these lenses, when I'm vlogging. I'm going to show you which ones are my favorite out of all these lenses. Let's go outside. I'm going to try to do my best to make sure I'm in frame and stuff. Just trying to go ahead and do it. So I had to get my Sony A1 to record this part because the Viltrox 13 millimeter 1.4 is an APS-C lens. However, if I can't record it in APS-C mode in 4K on the Sony A7S III. You can only go down to 1080p if you use Super 35 mode. So I wanted to keep this in 4K, so now we are recording on the Sony A1 in 4K in APS-C mode. So the first thing we're going to do is test out or look at the 13mm 1.4 Viltrox. I think this is the best vlogging lens for APS-C cameras. Everything between the 11mm 1.8, the 10 to 20, the 16mm, the 14mm. I found that the 13mm 1.4 is the best vlogging lens for APS-C. It's really, really sharp. It has the perfect focal length. 13mm is the perfect focal length. I found when I use the 11mm 1.8 from Sony, I noticed that it was just too wide. Now, I don't really know if this is going to change between people who are larger and people who are smaller who don't feel the frame. But even some of the YouTube people that I saw said that the 11mm just lets in, it's too much background. You're not the center of attention. I don't want it to be too wide. So 2 more millimeters makes a big difference. The 13mm 1.4 is absolutely incredible. Now, it is on a full frame camera. Now let's talk about that. When you put an APS-C lens on a full frame camera, you have to make sure that you multiply by the crop factor to get the full frame equivalent. So on an APS-C lens like this one, the 13mm 1.4, the full frame equivalent, if you multiply by 1.5, you get 19.5, which is basically a 20mm. That's pretty much the focal length that you're going to look at. Now, a lot of people forget, when you multiply your crop factor by the focal length, you also have to multiply by the f-stop or your aperture of that lens, because if you're looking at the full frame equivalent, you also have to multiply by that, and a lot of people forget that. So a 13mm will equate to a 19.5, roughly a 20mm on a full frame camera. However, 1.4 times 1.5 is 2.1. So actually an APS-C lens like this one on a full frame camera would equate to a 19.5mm or 20mm f2 or f2.1. So that's basically what you're looking at. You're looking at a 20mm f2 if you really want to look at the full frame equivalent. I love using the 13mm 1.4. It is absolutely incredible because it's 19mm. It gets me in the frame and it gets a lot of the picture in the frame, but not so much that it's going to dilute or distract my audience. It is so sharp and it's very, very lightweight. On top of that, it is a 1.4, so it's letting in a lot of light and is really good for low light when I want to vlog at nighttime or anything else. And I love that 19mm focal length, 19mm to 20mm, which gives you your full frame equivalent. Absolutely incredible. So if you take the 13mm, if the full frame equivalent is around 19.5mm, then why not just go with a full frame lens? Actually, sometimes I do. So the closest lens to a 13mm would be the 20mm 1.8. So the 13mm 1.4 and the 20mm full frame 1.8 actually looks almost similar. They are the best lenses that I have used for vlogging. Alright guys, so I hope you guys enjoyed that video, man. I hope this run sheet and this breakdown really helped you guys to really see and pick out your best vlogging lens, and hopefully this gives you a little bit more insight when choosing the vlogging lens. Vlogging lenses are really, really important because it really helps you tell the story, and it really brings your audience not only into you, but gives a little bit of what's going on around you. So you don't want to get something that's really, really tight where it's just going to be like right here, and you don't want to get something where you see everything and it just takes away from everything that you're doing and people are just distracted with everything else that's around you. You got to pick the perfect lens. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Remember to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in a lot of other videos that we're going to be bringing to you just like this. I holla. Peace.